I'm totally just clicking buttons. I actually meant to hit the intro and I hit countdown and I was like, oh yeah, I don't remember this countdown being part of the intro. I'm like, that's because it's not.
The fact that we're back for episode 2 is pretty good, though. We've
Yeah,
gotten this far.
yeah. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to try to get past these disaster of earnings from Amazon. In the spirit of disasters, I was looking at something interesting. Let me see here. Share. I even come completely unprepared, so forgive me for that.
Well, that's fine. Oh, this guy, huh?
Yeah, man. Do you know what these retailed for originally?
I think the MSRP on those was like around like 165. Yeah, somewhere around that.
Yeah, I think this one had sticker had it at I think 180 was the 189.
Jesus.
It went for 90,000. Barely, actually, not even. But I mean, it's practically like if you were trying to sell me on a car, 23,000 miles.
That's a great spec too. Is that like that charcoal finish on that cocaine white interior?
Right. No, it's beautiful, and I mean the interior on them's sick. You look at the sorry, my bad. The lines on him, absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's real sleek. Got that kind of nice soft look to it, but they're fast like heck. They're what V8 twin turbos, so they're monsters. A lot of carbon fiber panelings and stuff. Like it's just beautiful, and just held no. I mean, to me, like that's cut 50% in 6 years, 7 years, 23,000 miles. It's practically new. I don't know, like that's a. We had the Callaway last year, last week as from an investment standpoint. This one's probably not winning any awards either. It held almost no value. I'm still kind of wondering if this is part of that Tesla EV destruction, because you're kind of getting you're going after that like premium like Model S, buyer, and you're getting the speed in the EVs that's faster than this. You're not going to have all that high-end expensive maintenance. The interior on this is way better, but I think it's just kind of chased that consumer away from Mercedes and Beamer and all those into pretty much Teslas exclusively, and then now you're having a few others come out. But this was shocking to me that it went for and the other ones I saw were all like right around 80 to 90 was kind of the sale price on these, and it seems like a great car for that type of price, having been cut more than half.
Yeah, but I mean that's definitely a car that I would take for that price. But the other thing too is, I would disagree with you on maybe this particular model that the EVs are cutting into it. Like the coupes are a real particular buyer, and they're generally aging themselves out. You're talking about, generally 50 plus, maybe 40 plus years old getting into that car. I don't know.
You're telling me a 35-year-old dad's not buying the
not this one
seats in the back? Those are perfect for babies.
For me, yeah, I'm down. But I don't think the S class, the 4-door, took as big a hit as these. Do you know if there's any comps for the equivalent S63 same year?
Those are actually, I haven't seen a coupe, so this was the only coupe that I saw. The 4-door
is a MSRP of 141.
Let me see here. It's a S63, and I'll filter. And I'll filter by
by that specific of a. But if you look, actually, to be honest, the coupes the 4-doors took about just as big a hit.
No, well, I mean, bigger. Look at this. It's no reserve 2016, 56K. That's coupe. That's coupe. Okay, so there were 2 coupes. 3. Okay. But I would think the sedans took even bigger a hit, probably kind of going along what you were saying. It's interesting. You remember thinking back like 10, 15 years, remember that these S-Class Mercedes were like, those were all you saw, like that like premium 100K model, like that was the car that you saw. You saw them as often as you see like Model S Teslas now, or at least you used to until Model 3s came out. And then they all of a sudden just went away. There were some 7 Series Beamers, and you were like, hey, okay, maybe that guy's like more into cars or something like that. But it was like overwhelmingly, it was like the S500 or some version of it, some AMG or some version. And then all of a sudden they disappeared. I hardly ever see them anymore at all.
Do you think it could have been the conversion? Because, I'll admit to being guilty of, I had a 2012 S63, the 4-door. So
nice.
So the V8, like no turbo, no twin turbo, nothing. The naturally aspirated V8, and the sound that thing made. Yeah, I think you may have seen it. I know Joe saw it for sure.
I don't think I knew that they made them non-turbo in the last like 10 years. I thought that was around for longer.
It was 11 or 12. It was an 11 or 12. But I mean, the sound those things made, and as soon as AMG started announcing, "Hey, we're doing the turbo now. It's not going to be a 6.3 liter anymore. We're going to reduce the engine size." I think they took it down to a 5.5, turboed it, and just everybody was up in arms about it on the AMG side. So maybe that's what started cutting into it. And around 2015, 2016 is when they started getting really serious about doing that cut.
Yeah. Well, it was the price point. Like these cars were that 150,000 model. You factor in some inflation, so they went a little higher. And now, again, anybody that I know that's buying that car or that type of car, that type of buyer, that high end 4-door sedan type of buyer is buying an Model S, right? Like you might have some pushback with like Lucid and all these like newer companies coming out with new EV cars, but they're not coming out. Those people are not chasing Mercedes brands. At least I don't know of one that is like really looking forward to. And you saw what they did with the EQ. Was it the EQ? That ugly EV that they have, dude. Oh my gosh, the interior looks really nice. But dude, looking at it from the outside, it's like probably one of the ugliest cars I've seen in the last 10 years. Because car design got really, really good. They got sharp, beautiful cars coming out. But the new EQ, oh my gosh, I don't know what they were thinking, how it got through whatever testing group or whatever they had to decide. Hey, you know what? Okay, yeah, I think the public's going to receive this well. No, it's hideous.
Well, they decided to design it by making it look like you're buying an EV. First of all, they think that people still want to stand out in that EV world and make it like obnoxiously obvious that, hey, I'm driving an electric vehicle today. So, and there's what's more annoying. There's 3 people in my neighborhood that caught him.
Oh God!
3 people that got him traded in their Priuses for it. They were all. I'm not lying to you. They were all Prius drivers.
Seriously, and they got that EQS Mercedes.
Yeah.
Or was
2 white ones, 1 black one.
Oh my gosh.
It's
that's a whole different type of buyer. I mean, obviously COVID did pretty well for their business. Because you had the person buying like a $20,000 Prius is not generally going after like the Mercedes. Aren't they fairly pricey?
The EQS?
The EQ.
It's EQS, yeah, it's the EQS. 102 MSRP.
Yeah, that's not the Prius buyer.
Dude, well, if they're like you, they held on to their Prius long enough to where they can go out and buy that thing.
Apparently, yeah. Wow. Holy
But to
moly.
me, it's like it is not the wheels on it are just gross. It's you know what it looks like. It looks like the 2012 Honda Civics.
Oh yeah.
So let's see, 2000 is it 2012 Honda Civic? 2012. Oh yeah, here you go. There you go. Let's see. So let me give you a nice picture of the Honda Civic here. Right? Let's see.
You just text it over?
Screen. Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
Here you go. Here's the link for you. There you go. Yeah. Tell me that doesn't look like
I got all my tabs put away. I'm like, no one's gonna bother me. I'm just gonna do this, and all of a sudden you're sitting there texting me, making noise.
I can share the screen, man.
I mean, I can Google 2012 Honda Civic as well. I actually did. If that's all you're giving me. All right, here we go.
You have this Eastern European issue with power over there right
now. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is yeah, I could see it. So maybe this guy here like quit, and then he took a couple years off, and then he got hired by Mercedes, because they're going through that hiring crisis right now, and then they picked up over here at Mercedes. Yeah, no, this car is not a good looking car, and it's interesting too, because with all these EVs coming out, you have like the flagship, like GM is like, this is our moonshot, so we're gonna like make an EV Hummer. We're gonna put all these moon things in because it's our moonshot. Whatever, it's stupid, but they know that it's an important thing and they got to do it right. And then you have Mercedes coming out there, and it's like, hey, this is what we created. And it's like, what are you thinking? Like, the Model S is a pretty sexy car, especially like lately they've been really making it look a little bit more aggressive. Like the Plaid Model S, like the new one, looks really nice, really aggressive, sits really well. And then you look at the Mercedes, and you're like, wait, this is what you guys brought to the fight? Are you kidding me? Like, you got Tom Brady over here, and then you got I don't know.
Yeah, it's just not good. A dead bloated body on the other side.
It's gross. So, yeah. So I don't get it.
Everybody got trapped on it. Everybody got trapped on designing EVs, right? First, remember that Honda Insight? I think we may have kind of touched on it last week, right? So
actually, no different than the Mercedes. Similar.
Yeah,
right.
Basically, it's the idea of let's design a EV to look like an EV instead of let's design one like the Tesla to make it look like a car. Today on the freeway, with the wife sitting in the passenger seat, I pointed out DBS, 2012 DBS going down the road. I was like, that's the next one.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, that looks like a Model S, and I was a little hurt, but I understood. Yeah, it does. It has those same similar long, sexy features to it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't understand the idea behind creating a car that makes it look like it's a statement, right? Like it looks like you're trying to change the world. That's the car they're trying to create. Whereas Tesla's like, no, I just want you to be another driver. Just go drive my car.
Yeah, and that was the whole difference with them too. They approached it in a completely different way. Instead of trying to make it that's a whole like first principles approach that Elon always talks about. And I don't want to get into that like whole Elon circle jerk, but the first principles approach of like, this is what we know now. Let's look at it from a fresh pair of eyes, and let's just see what we can come up with. And they came up with a great car. I mean, it is. We have a Model X. Love it. It's wonderful. I was looking at BAT earlier today too, and one thing I've done in the past, when I've put bids in, I'm like super anal about like, I got to make sure I enter the right value, especially on like on my phone and I can't hit keys. Um, you're putting a bid in for like a GT3 or something that's like I'm putting in like 175K. Most of the time I'm doing okay. It'd be fun to kind of get in there. I would take it for that price, but there's no way it's going to stop there, right? So I'm just doing the bid. It's more fun than anything. But I'm like hyper anal about what I punch in. I always wondered, I'm like, hey, what if that last minute or whatever, I punch in and it's like off by a factor of 10, so you're paying like $1.5 million. Well, I was watching today, Brain Trailer had this camper, which is just this beautiful dystopian, like, I don't know, this thing like looks like it belongs in a game of like a Half-Life or something, right? Like it's beautiful. I think there's just something to it. Imagine the thing parked in front of your house. But it looks like something out of a video game. But this dude punched in, it jumped from 100,000 to, let me see if they kept it here. Oh yeah.
Oh Jesus.
1,005,000. So it escalated pretty quickly. It was like 100,000, 1,005,000. So
that guy's
if there's several days left on the bid, apparently that does say, hey, okay, we'll let you walk that back. We get that this was an error, and we'll let you walk it back. But I just thought it was funny. I was like, dude, this must happen every now and then. I haven't actually seen it happen, and it was kind of wild to see, I guess.
I don't think I've ever seen that happen. But if that was me, I'd be shitting myself.
Oh yeah, because I mean, what's the worst case, right? Like they're probably not. You're not gonna pay it. Like what if you don't have that money, right? But you're probably never ever gonna get to place another bid on that again, which would suck.
Yeah.
You go over to other bidding places. No, yeah, that was pretty wild. I've never seen that before for sure.
Yeah, that is just getting way too excited. But like you said, he's got 6 days left on the bid. How excited are you getting that you're typing in $1 million?
Yeah. So no, that was cool about it actually. So for anyone wondering what happens if you actually mistype, I was trying to get the original picture up there, but I'll since they have it here like this, I'll leave that. But yeah, no, this is pretty wild. But the truck itself, man, this is pretty cool. Because I was wondering myself, I'm like, hey, what does something like this go for? It's a Dodge frame, I believe. It looks like it was built very well, like very properly. The people know what they were doing. There is a culture around stuff like this, right? Like in general, you have 2030, I think, is the peak of the boomer generation, like influx of people becoming boomers. So there's still a growing population of boomers. Well, kind of. And so their RVs are pretty hot. COVID definitely accelerated that. So you see something like this, it's like, okay, well, what about the wealthy, guy's got, 10, 15, $20 million, maybe wants to travel the country and kind of do it in a way that's not like the typical, like, Winnebago. This thing's really, really cool. And if the world falls apart while he's traveling the country, he could fight off the zombies and the hoarders in this too. I mean, who's going to mess with somebody in a car like this? No. People are going after easy targets. They're not going after the guy that looks like he's been prepping his whole life.
But that same guy now has the option to go to if you have those what is it, the Earth Roamers, like I was mentioning before, and like we have that thing with them in October, is that they're taking an F350 or 450, maybe a 550. I'm not sure which model it is, but they're doing a whole carbon fiber build of that cab. Of this living space right here that you just showed, it's all carbon on the outside to reduce the weight, right? So you're getting that super big, apocalyptic look. but a little bit more luxury in it, a little bit more comfort. I feel like that's where that guy's going to go. Granted, you're looking at, anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 for one of those things. We'll see where this one ends to see if it's comparable, but otherwise it looks as a competitor, wouldn't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of when we talk about like Porsches or something, like there's such a great amount of them that are sold, and so like it's pretty easy to pull comps on something like this.
Yeah.
There's so few and far in between. It's like, you ask me how much this is worth. It's like, okay, what did the last one sell for, and like what information can you find? And there's not like this universal network of like exchanges that everybody participates in. So if something went on bat, okay, you could probably find it, or any of the other competitor sites. But outside of that, you're guessing at best. But there's a lot of work. I mean, the whole undercarriage here welded really well. You have a lot of heavy duty components. It's all looks powder coated, painted. I don't know. It looks very properly built. That's a heck of a diff right there. Like that's heavy duty stuff that you're probably going to be fine. Wherever you go, beating it up. It's not going to be falling apart on you. And these things probably start. If you're just going to go buy like a Winnebago or something, you're paying over between 50 to 100,000 for like the entry level ones.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so something like this, it's slightly used, but like this is a very unique vehicle, and 4,600 miles. So it's practically brand new, and it's Cummins, 6.7 liter Cummins turbo diesel. So like, and an Allison transmission, right? Like, so everybody's like, oh, Allison transmission on the Duramax, like that's the
combo to have,
bread and butter. And then the Cummins turbo diesel is like the best diesel built. And this is coming from a guy that has a Duramax Hummer. Like Cummins makes an amazing product. It does. And so, you see something like this, is like, this is beautiful. How in the world do you value it? I don't know. It certainly is not going to probably depreciate more than other RVs. Like, say you pay,
there's no way.
Say you pay $200,000 for something like this. There's no way that you're going to be giving it up for 75, 80,000. Even if you go put 100,000 miles on it, there's going to be high end buyers that want this thing. And I mean, it's a 2012. So 2012 Titan XD. So it's just beautiful. I appreciate unique built vehicles, but more so when they're built real well. That Power Wagon that went on BAT, that was completely rebuilt, right? It was like a 50s or 60s Power Wagon, $400K. But you look at how it was built, man. It was beautiful all the way through. They did a job from when they took the frame, did a frame off, restored the frame, and then rebuilt the body using highest end parts. The interior looks perfect. I mean, it looks like any high end car that you could possibly get right now. There's a uniqueness to that. It's just like, I remember somebody posting, because there was a picture of like Mr. Zonda, Mr. Koenigsegg or something, like one of those designer guys making these amazing cars. And there was a picture of that guy and the people and the lady that built the Power Wagon. It's her company. And the comment there was like, this was his favorite car at the whole show. And there's something to that, because the guy that like designs the cars will see something like that and he's like, this is incredible. And that's the one he's going to be drooling over. He's not going to be drooling over the other Bugatti there or whatever. No. There's something really, really special to having that unique, high-end custom built car. I don't know. There's a beauty there. And this to me even more so, because there's this dystopian, like, this was the RV that was built for COVID, Like, if there's an RV that was built for this time, this is it.
It just has that look. And like while you were, mentioning it to see about comps in the time, There's one that sold for 241 back in October.
Oh, okay. So
Slightly different. So like you can get an idea of where it's going, right? The inside's not as nice as this one. It's got it looks like a taller cab though. So you know how the one that's currently on sale has the storage unit on top of the cab over engine system.
Mm-hmm.
The one I sent doesn't. Looks like it has some sort of like tent that deploys off the back, and anything that comes off that car, you have to use the word deploy. It's mandatory because it's not appropriate if you don't. So, but yeah, it's. I mean, so you're probably looking at somewhere over, $250,000 to get into one of these, which isn't that bad.
No,
Like,
no, and that's
relatively thinking.
That seems about right. And actually, let me go ahead and just share this. So this is the other Titan XD 4400 campers that popped up.
Yeah, so that beige one, second row, last one, basically.
Yeah.
That's like the one that sold in October.
Yeah.
So it's got that like extended cab, almost like a taller camper area.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? When you see distressed, like brand new items that are like painted like in a distressed
Patina.
way, where what's it called?
Patina.
Is it patina?
Patina. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like when they paint and then they scratch it and stuff like that. Like that's kind of what this looks. I actually thought that this one had like almost lost, like beiged outside because lost some of its color and like was through the woods. It probably has never seen like a off-road outside of this picture, maybe, if you want to call that off-road. But it's beautiful. I don't know, there's something to this. And wow, look at this one right here. Actually, this is the same one that we were looking at, right?
No, I think it was a little different.
It gets me thinking, man. I wonder how many he's built. I'm gonna have to look into this, and then maybe I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back maybe next week if we do this next week.
Go back one to that Google search that you had on there. Let's see. Look, so on the right toolbar, if you see that blue on the Hellwig, what is that thing? Further over to the right.
On the right side. Oh yeah, Hellwig.
Yep. Yeah. Click on that thing. What is that? What do we got there?
It opened up a new tab.
That does not look like the one that was pictured. There we go. Toyota Land Cruiser armored vehicle. Okay, so that is a completely.
God, that must be expensive.
It has a turret.
Okay, yeah, but also
it's
a Toyota. So here's the list of like things that just go off and they're like money sign like appears. Toyota Land Cruiser. You got armored vehicle. You got something that's a SWAT. Oh,
it has a turret.
Yeah, and it's a turbo. It's a diesel.
8-passenger.
Jesus. Okay.
PA system.
So, manual transmission. So Jeeps for the longest time also had this. Forgive me because I haven't done a lot of off-road with any off-road with a manual transmission ever. Scares the crap out of me. Not that I ever have the choice to use one anyway, off-road, but like, and I've driven a manual for over a decade. Like I'm very comfortable with it. I love it. Do you want to drive a heavy car off-road and have to worry about a clutch and managing that whole deal? Like that seems so much more work than it needs to be versus just having an auto. Like if there's ever a use case for an auto, isn't it like for stuff like this? Why would they make something like this in a manual? Like, right? Like those have been around forever.
Well, the issue is that you have
auto.
When you have an auto, is you're only allowed certain amount of space in the gears, right? So like it's going to automatically shift at a certain point, and that's the only power you're going to get unless you pull it into drive 1 or drive 2. If your car
hit the power mode button, like
no,
this.
No,
just what happens. You hit the power mode button, you get longer gears.
Okay, so like power mode button, that's equivalent to having a manual. You get a little bit more power range in there. You're using the RPMs a little bit higher. I think that's the benefit, especially on something so heavy. Hence why I think most semis, if not all of them, are still manual. I don't think they're automatic by any means.
I don't know about
Right?
still, but no, for definitely. I mean, I see
Right.
that case like
Okay.
for up until maybe the last decade. I think the
Yeah.
new autos got really good. Like they're a couple dozen speeds and and autos, but I'll stay away
And
from that rabbit hole so we don't get too deep there. But yeah, no, this thing is beautiful. It actually has me thinking. I'm wondering in 6 days, it's gonna be Wednesday. I was thinking maybe one of these we can bring in a live auction, and this would look pretty good in front of my house. So
yeah, yeah. Let's see how that one goes over because you really don't have something giant in the front driveway anyway.
yeah, well, I mean, it might make the Hummer look smaller.
That's what I
Like
say.
it'll
Is it to
make the
hide the
Hummer look
Hummer?
normal.
Are you
It'll make the
hiding it?
Hummer look normal, and this will look, dude. My neighbors, if I showed up with one of these in front of the house too, like I already have 30 or 40 people showing up in front of my house if things really go down. Partially the Hummer, partially everything else that's here. This here would definitely. I mean, I can make a case that I don't have to pay HOA anymore because I'm providing security for the neighborhood now. Because no one in their right mind is gonna try to do anything on the street with this thing there. Um, but yeah, it's totally beautiful, and I love the fact that it's funny. I had one of those thoughts that when I saw the price at $1 million when I originally logged in this morning, I was like, oh, okay, that's a little higher than I thought it would be. 6 days out, but maybe there's something really special to it, and it made me wonder, but I wasn't like completely like shocked when I saw $1 million, and then I saw the bid because that's the big deal, right? Like you see the delta from the last bid, because if you got two guys bidding 900,000 and $1 million, okay, yeah, it's going to go for a lot of money. When you see the last bid's 100K, and then you see $1,005,000, you know that somebody fucked up. So yeah, I was interested. I was wondering how BAT was going to handle that, and it looks like they handled it gracefully. And they actually, to their credit, they looks like they recorded it really well, and it's very transparent as to what's going on. The last thing I would say is, I wonder if anybody's even thinking about doing any type of algorithmic betting for these, because you got to figure you could probably pull the page, read the price, and if there's like a certain amount of time left, if all your comps that you can pull from wherever, and this car's way under, like on a no reserve price, like you could probably make an algorithm that's gonna bid within a certain tolerance or a certain amount, right? And so, how much would it jack up if you had like a price that was like really skewed like that and no comps?
I think it would
That
almost
might
freak
do
out at that point.
that might do some damage too. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious if any like algorithmic betting like that happens, or I mean, you got to figure there's probably enough degenerates sitting here staring at this 24/7. I know I am usually. So
There's a
that
guy
it's
out there
something
who
that
figured it out.
I'm sorry.
I think I sent it to you. The guy that figured it out. He sat there and basically accumulated all the information that Bring a Trailer was putting out there to any particular sale, and his algorithm averaged out and could be within $3,000 to $5,000 of the sale price of each car.
Yeah, yeah. And so
It could estimate it.
So at that point, you can make a judgment, right? Like you can make a judgment saying, like, hey, this Mini here is way under, way overvalued, and you could auto bid, like, right? Like give the computer 50K and say, hey, if something's super, and I can make 5,000, I can make 5 or 10% up to 50K. Go ahead and bid, and maybe it catches it every now and then. If it goes long enough, I'm sure it happens.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure somebody gets a pretty good deal every now and then. And so it's probably out there. So you had posted this Mini. These things are beautiful, man. I would love to go take it for a ride. Huh?
Yeah, this is my Prius.
Yeah, I get that.
Favorite car I've ever owned.
Well, hold on. greatest car I've ever owned, not my favorite. I'm very clear about the distinction. My favorite car I've ever owned, there's a whole discussion about that. Prius, greatest, best car. Best car. It's
my
a
favorite
unique,
car I've
special
owned.
category. Okay, yeah. I see that. I mean, that's why you still have it.
It's why, 10 years in. I had the car for 10 years. But before we go on to that, what is your guess on the final bid for the Titan Adrenaline? I'm going with $247.
You said that other one went for
$241.
$241. Okay, let me see where the bidders are here real quick. Although it doesn't really matter because the real ones probably won't jump in until later. Although, no, I'll give you. I don't want to do the prices right. Like I'll bid you by $1 or under, right? Like
no, whatever.
250 is a very good guess because that's the comp, right? Like the guy that's seriously going to be spending money on that, sitting there, you're going to be looking at least 200,000. It's a premium listing, so but it's no reserve.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, if this thing goes if it's under 200,000, I will be there. If it's under 200,000, I'll be there. So it's gonna have to go for over because there's no way.
There's no way.
There's no way it goes for under 200,000. So, and like I said, if it does, I'll be there and I'll have that conversation with my wife. I'll probably just show her this video and like, you'll understand later. But we're going on a road trip, honey. But
that'll sell it real well. That's
Yeah, no, I would say 300,000. 300,000. It's a good question.
Okay, so you'll go north. You'll go 250 higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for the reason of I want this. Like I genuinely want this. If it is available at a reasonable price, and I know that there's buyers that are in a better situation than I am that will buy
reasonable. There's no reasonable in this thing.
Yeah, I mean,
the vehicle itself is not reasonable.
I got the Hummer is an unreasonable car. I got it for a very reasonable price. Part of the thing is the guy, even if the guy can afford a really, really nice car, for instance, he doesn't want to like overpay. Like part of the game, unless he just has the money and he doesn't deal with finance. Like part of the game, at least for me, is part of it's getting the deal. Like the reason I have the Z downstairs, I paid $12,500 for it, cash. It's at 30,000 miles. It was an 07, sat in the garage, is mint condition. Would I pay 17, 18, 20 for it? I could probably get that for it right now, but there's no fun in that. Like part of the fun of it is I love the car, but it's that I paid so little for it and I kind of got that. So I'm just trying to understand like the buyer there, and that I'm probably the buyer for this thing, maybe just short of it actually, because this thing's even a little bit too much for me probably. But this is a $200,000 car at least. Like there's no way somebody doesn't scoop it up for that. So with that, I think 300,000, and part of it too that's kind of exciting is that it's just hard to do evaluation. And I mean, you're my evaluation guy, right? So you're the guy I'm texting. If like, hey man, what do you think about this? Is this like really actually a good deal? And I put a lot of value in your thought on that. And something like this is really, really sexy to somebody that can afford it. And there's plenty of people that still can afford this type of thing.
I think it's going to go sub 250. I think if it's somebody who's overly excited about it, it'll go above, but not much. It'll stay below, and you'll see it in the bidding, right? It'll just be constantly just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think if that happens, you're stopping at 265.
Yeah, well, it depends on who shows up too, right? Like the two guys getting there and being like, well, okay, another $5,000.
If it's the $1 million guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets excited.
we've seen that before. So 265, I think, is a great bid. I'm saying 300 because I think it'll go for more than what you're guessing at 247, but I think that's a very, very good valuation because the only other comp you have is roughly that, right? And so I think auto market probably going to slow down a little bit. Like everything in finance has been getting harder for sure. And so you're probably not going to have the same acceleration. With that said, the camper enthusiast outdoorsman that is IPOing his company or that is trying to sell his company for $100 million and owns a good chunk of it, that's the guy that's buying this thing. And he's going to pay. He's going to pay because the only other thing that he's looking at, and I know one of these guys, I do. He's a wonderful guy. That's why I'm being fairly specific about this answer. And he asked me the other day. He's like, because we were talking cars, and he's not a huge car guy, but he's like, can you give me a camper? And I've seen one down the street from where he's at, and one of his neighbors has like a nice Winnebago, like fairly reasonably sized, but not like super bougie camper. And that's the camper that he's looking at, not being a car guy, or he's looking at this. But I roll up in front of his house, and he's gonna be like, dude, yes. and he's gonna spend the same amount of money, whether it's this or maybe the nice Winnebago or whatever. He's not gonna think about it too much. So that's who I would have in mind for something like that. I actually might send this to him because he might get a kick out of it too. But it's beautiful. I think whoever made this, well done. This is gorgeous. I love it. I would buy it myself. I will buy it myself if the price is right. But this is just, it's beautiful. It scratches an itch for me. It does.
Hate to burst your bubble. It's not going to happen.
I know.
Not at the moment.
I know.
To be fair, not at the moment.
That's okay. I probably lost one of these after the bell today. So I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I probably just should have gone ahead and just bought it because and not had the money at risk in the first place, because then I'd at least have a place to live. But
that would be comfortable.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then go into your favorite.
Yeah, no, like we've been talking about like what's going on with like the new classics, kind of like what's coming up, and not to be the Fast and Furious guy because I'm not that guy at all, but like the whole hot hatch situation. Before I got into Mini Cooper, I was looking
explain hot hatch.
So basically, your standard boring, hatchback that's used for economy purposes, right? Financially and gas and that kind of thing. Then you take it and put dumb amount of power in it for a front wheel drive car, lower it, stiffen the suspension, and it's just basically a little go-kart.
Does a wagon qualify as a hot hatch then? Like a E63?
Yeah, to me that would qualify as a hot hatch, 100%. Or like that, even like the M5, I think it was only Europe, the M5 wagons, or the E63. That's a wagon. We're calling it wagons. Hot hatch is going to have 2 doors, essentially, and look like that, with the exception of the Golf, which has 4. It's still a hatchback. But my point being is, I think these cars are now coming up in value. Specifically, this one being, the GP, which is basically a gutted Mini Cooper with all the scaffolding, cage in the back for you to go take it straight to the track. With this, there's just something so fun about driving it. It's not the most expensive car you're going to drive. It's not the fastest car you're going to drive, but you're on the red line in the streets all the time. And my personal one is not this one. This is the supercharged 4-cylinder version. I have the turbocharged 4-cylinder. But it is a blast to drive. And again, I don't get the wing on it for one reason. It's front wheel drive. The wing is in the back.
The look, man. The look. So why do you think why did they change? Was it a supercharged first, and then they went to a turbo, or was it turbo supercharged, or what?
It
Why the
was
distinction?
it was supercharged then turbo, and I think the whole thing with BMWs, they had a deal with Peugeot on their motor, their little
Hmm.
four-cylinder motor. So then it was easier to put that into the minis on redesign, and um, the fuel economy went through the roof on it. I'll hammer on mine all day long, and I'm still getting 26, 27 miles per gallon. You know,
Is it is that because you're not using the? I mean, you're only really using it when you're doing the forced induction, and the forced induction only happens on a turbo at the
in a
later
certain
half of the
RPM
RPM
range.
range, right? And
Yeah.
so in the
So when you're getting
supercharged, since you're getting it the whole time, then you're needing more fuel all the time right in the beginning, right? And that's probably why supercharged going to eat up more fuel.
exactly, yeah. So it's just because you're taking that air, you're shoving more air through in the combustion chamber. It's going to take more fuel to get the power out of it and go from there. But
So
my point on, go ahead.
right.
I was gonna say my point on it. Look, little scratches right there. On these being the next kind of collectible is because individuals like us who were into the 350Zs, the 370Zs, were also into the Mini Coopers, into the Golfs. I don't know if you remember the R32, the Golf R32.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean
The little
those things sounded.
Volkswagen. I originally thought
Yeah.
Skyline, but then I was like, no, we're talking about
No,
hatchback.
no, no.
So yeah, the little Volkswagen R32 is right. Yeah. Those are
Yeah,
cool.
they sounded amazing, and they were ridiculously fast. I think those were all-wheel drive though, so a little bit more fun. But
Mazda had one too, right? I remember my buddy having one. It was all lowered, and every time
yeah,
he came over a bump, like the wheel would hit the fender. It was like
yeah,
lowered in a shitty way. So like the car sounded like it was gonna break on every turn, but it was fast, and it looked like a
yeah.
lot of fun to drive.
It was the Mazda 3 Mazda Speed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was so sad when they stopped making those. So initially, before I sent you this one, I was going to send you the Volvo C30. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's kind of like a weird hatchback from them, which I originally
Hmm.
wanted. And they have the Polestar version, which is 300 horsepower. This tiny little car, amazing. And then Polestar turned into this whole other thing. But I think these are going to start creating more value for people. They're just going to get more excited about them. Like I said, take mine out. Take the wife's out. She has one. You know what I
I
mean? Like
I
as
I
the funny
will.
story about these in particular is the first time I picked up my wife, and she was at her parents'. Her dad was making fun of me for driving a Mini Cooper,
Yeah.
and within 3 months of us getting married, he asked me to go find him one, and then the wife made fun of me. Then she wanted one, and then the cousin made fun of me. He got one. So now we have this giant group of mini drivers. So
How tall are
it's just
you?
6'2".
Yeah, because
So
I was wondering about that. I'm 6, and so I fit in things normally more or less, and I'm not really as big as I used to be. So something like this probably fits fine. But I always wondered um, how somebody. But I remember them being pretty roomy. Like I don't think of
they're massively
BMW
roomy.
cars being
Yeah.
small cars. So the one time I got to drive one of these, it was a club sport. It was like the first
Okay.
year that the four doors came out, and the
Yeah.
the 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 way that the front wheels are positioned, um, when you take a turn, you really feel like the car just pivots. It's this very great steering feedback. I remember that. I remember the car being very smooth, like I expect like a BMW would drive type of thing. Like it was very predictable, but I remember the steering really being just um, being very predictable, very quick.
Yeah.
It's a very unique feeling on that particular car. You don't feel like you're dragging a car along with you. It feels like the wheels turn and you're like being sucked along with them. It's a very impressive thing to drive. I remember the first time seeing these when they were really sexy was the Italian Job, right? Like
Yeah.
you had what's her name,
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron, and you had these, and I just remember them being like, oh, that was the first time I looked at them like a little differently, like being like, okay, maybe they are kind of like fun car guy, quick cars.
They are fun.
That kind of took that stigma. I don't know if how I'd feel about these if I didn't have that movie back then. Because ever since that movie, when I was a kid and I saw it, like it just changed my perception. And it's funny how movies and stuff do that, because a lot of time the car is not even the best car. Although you have like Fast and Furious that, sure enough, they picked like a Toyota Supra and an RX-7. Like there were definitely car guys that like put that crew together. But something like this, it definitely was just a very driver's car, but you wouldn't recognize it unless you drove it. That movie kind of took a little bit of that stigma off. It's actually incidentally what I'm trying to do with the Prius. I'm trying to take that stigma away by testifying that it's a great car, because it is.
Not gonna happen.
But no, this is wonderful. I wonder. So you were talking about collectible. Like, the interesting thing about the collectible element, because I thought a lot about this. If the collectible cars, it seemed like to me, become the ones that the buyer kind of couldn't have, or maybe had and then had to get rid of because of family obligations or anything else, aged a little bit, made some money, and then they came back and said, yeah, I want that. And yeah, I'm willing to pay for it because I really want that. Like, and so I remember when I was going over to my buddy's house, and his dad had like these 70s cars that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I thought to myself, I'm like, who in the world would pay that kind of money? But it's my buddy's dad who would. I mean, he made some good money, and he really wanted that, Chevelle, or he wanted that Roadrunner. And so he's like, okay, well, I'll buy that. And everybody else in that same demographic and that same financial situation is also in. So now you have it kind of a Supra and like our era of cars, because those people, okay, now are starting to make a little bit of money and are willing to spend it. So there's the element of like, okay, now that buyer is willing to go back and probably buy it now. But then the other thing you probably have to fight is the production numbers, right? Like the rarity of that specific vehicle. So like,
this one's 2,000 units made, and it's one of those things where it's like the MSRP on this thing was 30 grand new.
Yeah.
This one just sold for 28. How many miles did it have on it?
62,000.
62,000 miles on it. So let's just be honest. This thing got driven because it's lowered. I can tell it's lowered. And it got driven hard for 62,000 miles.
Yeah.
If you held on to it from new, you
never redlined.
Never redlined. I have never redlined my car. Any of my cars.
I've never stalled any of my cars either.
There's
I
cobwebs.
still do it every now and then.
There's cobwebs up by the red line. I mean, it just never goes up there ever.
Yeah. The way you clear those cobwebs is you actually take the RPM.
Yeah, no, it's just
that's it. It clears them right up.
I just took a black marker and just kind of erased the red line. But I think it's like you said, it's cars that people had or wanted to have and couldn't have, and now they can. And you're seeing that in that price, right? And that basically selling for new when it's a heavily used car. And I'm using heavily used loosely because we don't really know how it was driven, but the odds of it are pretty high, right? So
yeah,
I think this is going to be a new market for these cars.
Yeah, because I mean, who buys these? The people that buy these are the people that want to drive them. 302 miles. It's actually the same one, 2006 GP.
302 miles on it. Yeah.
But 302 miles. It's the same one, but new. Or like roughly, probably top 10 or something. Didn't you say there's a designation for cars that are like the top 5 or 10, models or something of that particular?
You mean like within the production of them?
Well, like within the production, within the mileage and the specs and the way that it was maintained. Like, say I have a Carrera GT and there was like 1,000 of them built, and I have the fourth best one out of that 1,000 that's ever been built because the mileage is the least
Oh, like
with
you mean
the
like
way that it's kept and everything else. Isn't there a
the
name for that?
unicorns?
There's a term. Maybe.
The
Well, no. I thought there was a term for like the way like one of the top 5 or 10% of the
yeah, I'm trying to
remaining
think of what I
units of
would have
that car.
used.
But
There's,
there
I
should be
mean, you can.
there should be a term. There should be a term for that. It's because
There's garage
in a
finds.
way,
I don't think it's that one.
yeah.
Is it?
But no,
It's like garage
this
find
garage find,
or barnyard find. That's the
barnyard
old
find.
term. Yeah, like
No.
you have the unicorns in spec, which is like a really rare spec for a car that is already low produced. So you have those, and then you have the barnyard finds, which are standard car, low mileage, and it's just you wouldn't have thought it was where it's at. Other than that, I can't think of anything I would use.
Yeah, it's all good.
Something will come up in conversation. We'll have to screenshot it at some point.
Yeah. Well, there's or maybe we'll make the term if it doesn't exist. Because there should be a term for that, like top 5, 10%. Probably percentage makes the most sense because of unit numbers.
I don't want you making a
Really
term because you're going to turn Prius into a verb, and I don't want that.
Well, I mean, okay, and I shouldn't be responsible for anything. My language capacity and capability is very, very low. As we'll find having more iterations of these, but no, there should be a term. I feel like we could come up with one. And so I was watching. I forget what I was watching. But there was something they announced. It was probably CNBC because it's about the only thing that's on in the background. Unfortunately, some of the day. But they had talked about the new. There's a new EV Corvette that they have coming out.
Yeah.
How do you think this is going to be received? I remember the pushback that the mid-engine got, and I was looking at the comments for just the F-150 Lightning. I was watching the release, and there are these people that are just, give me my V8, or EVs are gay and whatever. It's like, okay, both can exist, both are wonderful. Let's not just completely say, hey, because it's this, I don't want anything to do with it, or it shouldn't exist. Actually, it's probably how, like, that's their perception. It's like, no, it shouldn't even be it's an abomination. It's like, well, no, if you don't want it, that's fine. You might reconsider when gas is like $12 a gallon. But there's a unique use case for people that actually use them professionally, for instance, like a truck, that probably will get a great use out of them. The EV Corvette, though, it's an interesting. It's a car that's fairly low production numbers. I think I pulled them up. Let me see here.
Well, they're making the EV, and then they're having the hybrid come out as well. So you're going to now have the full range of gas, hybrid, and then EV, which the EV is supposedly taking the name on of E-Ray. Like Stingray, E-Ray.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And we all know that
they were specific about how they were going to keep the V8 around. Like, they were specific, saying
it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. So almost to appease those people that are like, I have a good friend that's like that. It's like, don't get EVs next to me. That hardcore. He's a Viper fan too, not a Corvette fan. But shout out TJ. But there is that group of people that's going to want it. But it's interesting because the people that are going like against the F-150 truck or something, at the end of the day, maybe use it professionally, and they'll probably see a beauty to it. I'm curious, with all these sports EVs coming out too, if the Corvette EV is going to be adopted well by the people that are EV enthusiasts, and if it's going to drag any of the petrol like people into this wave, into this future wave of cars too, because they seem like a very stuck. It almost seems like a dying brand, a dying breed. And this is coming from a guy that has a Hummer. But so, and GM was able to recreate that. So, maybe if anybody could do it, it's GM. But it does seem like a very, very niche group of people, and they don't seem like the people that want this. So I don't know.
We've seen it kind of trickle down, and we know now Chevy using it. Was it the Ultium battery platform? Right, they used it for the Hummer. They're using it for the Silverado. We know they're going to use it for the Corvette. So we know that now you're going to start to see a range of Chevys coming through with, or GMs, I should say, with that same platform. And we saw this hybrid sports car stuff trickle down when we saw the McLaren P1 come out. Then we saw the what was after the P1? The LaFerrari, I think, is a hybrid, right? Right, I think that's a hybrid. And then the Carrera, the newest Boxer, the 918 Spider. Another hybrid. So we saw that kind of trickle down. Those took on well, mainly because huge marquees are putting it out, limited production, extreme high performance. So you're kind of getting into that. Eventually, we're going to see it happen in the normal range. When we saw the i8 come out from BMW, it was kind of a 50-50 take on it, right? It wasn't super big, but they also kind of slammed it with a shitty, I think it was a 3-cylinder motor. Not 100% on that one, but I think it was a 3-cylinder gas motor.
The i8, yeah.
Yeah, so they made an attempt at it. I think the Corvette, as much as I'm not a Corvette fan, and the wife keeps pointing out Corvettes to me on the street saying they look good. So
which one she like?
She likes the new one, the new C8 mid-engine. Like, don't get upset right here, because the other day she's like, "Is that a McLaren?" I said, "Excuse me."
Oh, no.
And then she's like, "Oh, it's like," but then she referred to it. "Oh, it's like the poor person's McLaren." I was like, "Okay, well, it's not. That's okay. We can't be on both extremes. We got to be somewhere in the middle here." But I think if something can bridge that gap, it would be the Corvette. I think it could pull in a lot of hardcore gas enthusiasts to consider the EV or even the hybrid idea. Because I guarantee you, too, that a lot of the guys who have the gas-powered, the petrol Corvettes and are stuck on it, more than likely they have some form of Camry in the driveway that they're using to save gas, because they're looking at their Corvette as a weekend car.
And it historically has been that weekend car. That's the car you keep in the garage and use. It's funny you say that about the wife, because mine, since high school, was like, hey, if you get straight A's from the folks, like, we'll buy you. And at the time, it was a C5. It was like the Cruising Exotica, C5 Corvette. And I think that was right when the C6s were coming out. And they were okay, but we're kind of more, and I still thought about buying one at some point. Almost bought a ZR1, a Z06 in the past. Like, just all these. It was the I don't want to say cheap, because it wasn't cheap, but it was the inexpensive supercar, right? Like, that was the best car that you could buy for under $100,000. And a lot of them were like, you go to CarMax, you buy them for $40,000. It was like, they were awesome. Like, less someone, right? And they give you financing, you pay like $400 a month, you'd be driving a Z06. But and I had friends that did that.
That's the reality of it.
I loved it. Yeah,
that's the reality of it. It's like price per horsepower and performance. There's nothing that was beating the Corvette, especially if you're buying something on the used car market. But if you go back into the C5 range, C6, C5, you had the Super Sport Camaros, same motor, for a lot less. And then you had the Trans Am WS6, same motor, for a lot less. And, I am reluctant to say I had a Trans Am WS6, and I did drive with the T-tops off a lot, way more than I should have.
Dude, they're cool. They're cool. So something like that, I can see. I'm sure probably right now you're in such a pretty good value, but even in 10, 15, 20 years, you probably have a decent, like a real good, especially for something unique like a T-top. Like that was the, and I wasn't really, that was the, like, the one that, like, if like a modern, or like while we were in like high school or college era, MacGyver or something would show up, like, or like whatever, like, that's the type of car he would drive. Like, I don't know, like that's the image I have in my head for whatever reason. Somebody touched me once the wrong way. I'll get to that in some other episode, but there's
I don't think I have the coping skills for you.
yeah, isn't that what this is for? No, but those T-top cars in that era, it was what, the 90s? Most of the 90s, right? Like they had
late 80s into 2002, because I had a 97, so I had the LT1, so I had the C4. I had the C4 version.
Yeah,
the Corvette.
Those
C4,
are iconic engines too.
Yeah, the LT1 and the LS1 was some of the most bulletproof motors you can find. Unless you're my brother, then you found a way to make sure it didn't run. But I think what's going to happen is the EV Corvette, you're going to lose some things. So you're going to lose like the Z06 platform. You're going to lose the ZR1 platform, which is fine because you're getting this instant torque, hopefully 1,000 horsepower rated EV. Now, if I'm a Corvette guy and I'm seeing that there's the Tesla Model X that's doing what I think it's 1063 horsepower for the full out motor, right? So 1063, somewhere around there. And
for the Tesla, like what they're advertising as their horsepower.
Yeah, the Model X I think is somewhere around there, right?
The Model X.
Let's see. That's 1020. So 1020. That thing is doing 1020, but I have an EV Corvette that's doing 683, some weird number. I'm just throwing something off the top of my head. Then I'm going to be kind of annoyed, right? Granted, I'm going to be in a lighter car and whatnot, but I want something that's going to keep up with the Roadster because that's the idea of the Corvette. It's a more affordable version of an elite premier car.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do the comparisons now. Like, okay, so going back before EVs, like the big thing was that incremental 0 to 60. Like I remember wanting, like I had the Nissan 350, and it was like 5.1 to 4.9 0 to 60. Then you had like STIs and Evos that were fetching like 4.6. And then like the supers, or like the really high end, nicer ones, were doing under 4. Then I got the 3, and then all of a sudden EV came out and was like, "Hey,
1.9.
Here's 1.9, and by the way, our 8,000 pound, 7,000, probably 5,000 pound Tesla X downstairs runs a quarter mile in less than 10 seconds, and goes 0 to 60. Ours does 2.6, but 2.5. In one respect, like it took that. One thing I appreciated about it is it almost freed me from the thinking of like, hey, I need to go a little. I can get something that goes a little bit faster because I have something that I don't even use most of the time because either the wife or the car or somebody's in the car, and I can't accelerate that fast without like actually hurting them. Like my wife straight up like will yell at me if I start stomping on the gas that hard on the throttle. I guess is probably the right way to say it moving forward. Yeah. But also like I have stuff like just sitting there. Like I have my wallet and stuff that's in a little bin. But if I go 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds, it's going to go flying to the back of the car. And I don't mean like up under the seat. I mean like I'm going to be opening up the trunk to get it. So it took that like that straightaway like idea away from me. Like I'm not chasing anymore. What it did open up though was that like appreciation. I think I understand those guys that modify like old Cadillacs and get them to bounce, and like all those super custom cars that like I used to probably look at as being kind of silly. I actually appreciate them. It's still not my thing, but I get how they feel about it because there's a soul and a character to each car, whether it's EV or gas, and there's an appreciation for something a car does. The Prius, the Z, the Hummer. Like I daily drive the Hummer, not because I'm trying to get somewhere very quickly or whatever, just because I enjoy driving that car. If I'm not trying to, get a little bit more power so I can beat the next guy off the line. If I want to do that, I'll bring my Tesla. It used to be I'll bring my motorcycle, but I'll do it even faster in the Tesla than my Gixxer 1000. And I'll do it while drinking, a Starbucks and being very comfortable, and safe.
I think it's kind of like that evolution just in general of the car, and it's something that we saw in the 50s when people started hot rodding their cars. Right, everybody was worried about that quarter mile time, and right now the electrics, the EVs are worried about that. They're not worried. That's not the right way to put it, but they're one of the promotions is that off the line 0 to 60. That is a good selling point, right? And on the gas powered cars, we're at this point where we're looking at it. Yes, it does 0 to 60 in 2.9 if you're in McLaren. Okay. But the track time is this. Going around the Nürburgring is this. So I think it's going to be kind of catching that wave where the EVs are going to start to going, now we're putting up track times at Laguna Seca. We're putting up track times at Nürburgring, whatever it is. So to your point of like having this ease about getting into the electrics and being okay with that kind of, hey, this car is going to beat me. I think that's the new progression of bringing people into the electric cars, bringing the performance guys into it. And screw it. We know that they're going to be faster, right? We know that they're going to be more efficient, that there's more reasoning behind them. But in the end, just leave us a little bit of gas for some of those Porsches, some of those muscle cars, so we can go have our fun on the weekend. That's all we need.
It's going to become that, like, I went axe throwing this past weekend and had a blast. It's definitely not like the way you go about like having combat. Like sure. I'm sure at some point it used to be. But man, I had so much fun. And it's going to move more and more toward that, hey, you want to go take that car out, around the track or even around town, and it makes noise and it consumes dinosaurs and everything else. Great. There's a soul, there's a connection you have to that car. It's a collectible. That's cool. And that to me makes a lot more sense than like NFTs or something, right?
Yeah.
But that daily driver, I mean, this is what you get. And this is what we have, and I love it. It's a wonderful car. One thing that blew my mind here, though, is that I originally paid, and I tried looking up, but I didn't have the document online like I thought I did. So forgive me, but I'm pretty sure I paid no more than $6,000 for this in May 2020. Holy crap. $12,000 for full self-driving. Now, I don't want to take away from the difficulty of what they're trying to do and what they have done. It is great. I love when my wife goes to work and if somebody gets a text and everything, she can be looking at it anyway. I love the fact that the car's in FSD and she can, she's got it on. She'll check her phone anyway. With that said, I've had to do some weird stuff. Like there's a particular set of cases. If it's a daily road that you're taking to work and back, you probably know where it screws up. The one we specifically had was when you're in one lane and it becomes two lanes, like in a carpool lane, you have one lane and then all of a sudden it opens up into two. It could not, at like 80 miles an hour, it's a little scary. It couldn't figure out where it wants to go. And so it starts going into one and then it goes, oh no, I actually want to be over in this one. And all of a sudden it jerks over. It scares the hell out of you going 80, 85 miles an hour on the 405. So, and I've worked with software, my background in software and cutting edge software where you're doing test pilot type stuff. That's not something that most people are going to be cognizant of, and then you have an accident. Obviously you hear people complaining about it all the time. I'm going to get off of that pedestal, but it seems like there's a lot of cars that do a lot of the things that are available in what they kind of advertise. With that said, I find myself really not using FSD very often either because I just like to drive the car. And it's not so much the control thing of like I don't trust it or anything. I don't, but I don't mind monitoring it. However, even those times where I'm sitting there and my hands on the wheel and I'm like relaxing, I rather just drive. I like driving. Very rarely do I use cruise control or anything else. So I was blown away that this was up to 12 grand now, less than 2 years later. Actually just 23 months later. And
it's because they had the tech for you that was test pilot, legit test pilot, and this is the more refined test pilot.
Yeah, but part of me wonders that this hardware that they have that does all the image processing and all the self-driving, it's going to get old eventually. Like, say they crack this in another 4 years or something, like that full self-driving that I had is not going to be the same hardware that they're probably using in 4 or 5 years. And then what do they do? They're going to go back and say, oh, well, yeah, but that's why you paid $4 grand and that's why now they're paying 25. It's like, yeah, but the sales pitch to me was that you pay 4 now, so you don't have to pay 25 later. So it's interesting. I want to navigate this carefully, but like, it's not scammy, but it seems like this self-driving and this potential savings being default is really not
justify getting sold.
I'm sorry?
Are you trying to justify getting sold?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I bought this car because I could afford it, not because I was looking for savings, which cracks me up when somebody tries to make that argument. But,
well, that's what I'm saying. You got sold on the package for self-driving? No, you wanted it off the bat. The person sat there and said, "Hey, by the way, it's going to get better, and you're going to have the savings later on down the road." You're like, "Cool, just give it to me now."
Yeah, well, you're paying 140 for the car then. So like, what's another 4 actually? It's not even 3%.
Okay, what is it? Yeah, not even 3, but barely over 2.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
but it's kind of wild that the price here, because so our configuration out the door, taxes and everything, we paid about 140, and I think the sticker on it probably was like 120 at the time or something. It was the highest spec, Model X at the time in May 2020. Same one now, you're looking at 150 in that configuration. Well, actually over, because you're looking at this price, plus you're looking at 12,000 for autopilot or for full FSD, forgive me. And then you're looking at taxes and fees. So you're looking at almost 180 grand by the time you're done. So that's wild, man. It's wild.
But I'm sure the prices, it's going to keep pushing up as they keep producing, like we were talking about earlier, so they keep producing those lower priced cars, right? I think these are going to get pushed up a little bit further. It's kind of like making room. It's just kind of pushing the tile forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, now the family SUV is 100K. You're looking at the Suburban, the $100,000 car plus, which is kind of wild. I remember those being 40 or 50, not to be back in my day type of thing, but that's kind of where they're at now. So you had mentioned something about Ford Raptors. Probably last topic here before we have to sign off, because I gotta get going.
Actually, not even the Ford Raptors. To me, it's like we're talking about the EVs, just going to the Polestars, right? Polestar being, what AMG is to Mercedes, they were to Volvo for a while. And I think it's this kind of hidden EV that's coming out of nowhere. Not really coming out of nowhere, but that people aren't paying much attention to. That I think is going to start changing or catching up. If you look at a lot of the stuff, it's kind of mimicking Tesla and some of the features that you're getting. But they've delivered, I think, what was it? I was saying earlier, like 19,000 or 29,000 cars so far this month, or this year and a half, 2 years, somewhere around there.
You're talking about Polestars?
Polestars, yeah. So
39,000 delivered so far. Mach-E's is 18,500. And Porsche Taycans, which, dude, there was this Porsche Taycan Turbo S.
Oh God,
that's outside of Costco the other day. I was drooling, and better yet, there was a female, probably our age, with a little kid getting out of it. Like I was drooling. drooling over this car, and then I was coming back, and yeah, she was getting him out of the back seat, and so I was like, that's, oh my gosh, okay, that's so cool. It's
I
so
think
cool.
that's going to be if I go EV, or when I do, I think that's going to be the move for me. It's going to be the Taycan. But
yeah, I mean, God willing, right?
yeah, it's like it's one of those things where the Polestar, a smaller manufacturer is kind of creeping back out there in the woods. Nobody's paying attention to them. You have somebody like Porsche, who's backed by Volkswagen, who supposedly, I think, has produced the most EVs, somewhere in the 1.4 million range, so above Tesla, and isn't getting a lot of credit. Point being is, I think it's a company to start looking
Sorry,
at.
say that again.
On what part? Like the Volkswagen production?
The production number versus Tesla EVs, because I thought that was interesting.
So Tesla's somewhere in the 930,000 to 940,000, I think, produced total EVs. Volkswagen, I think, was at 1.4 million total EVs produced. So but that's including across their brands, right? And I was looking at those numbers the other day, and I was like sitting there going, wait a second, how's that possible? I don't see enough Tesla or Volkswagen EVs out there.
We're talking about 2022?
No, just total production. See, this is where it gets murky with Volkswagen, because it's Volkswagen, not the manufacturer themselves, but the entire auto umbrella. So that includes every company they own, Porsche, whoever it is. I don't even know what else they own. Audi, I think they own Bentley, right? But Bentley doesn't have any EVs. But
they must have a lot. They must have a lot.
Lamborghini.
They must have a lot elsewhere, because, like, here we see Teslas everywhere, right? So if they were producing more, you would think that you would see more of them EVs. So maybe I don't know if they're like dominating some other country or something like that's not like Finland or Switzerland or something like that.
It's around the world, supposedly.
That's wild.
So
that's wild. Or someone fat fingered that. Probably the guy that put the bid on the camper.
Let's see here. I think I have the article. Okay, so it's my bad. Here we go. My first course correction is they're planning on hitting 1.4 million EV drives. That's their goal. Okay.
Okay, so that's in a couple of years when they ramp. That makes more sense.
Yeah, because there's two articles. One of them says EVs produced, and I was like, okay, I read that, and I just popped up another one. It's 1.4 million, but still, you have these smaller manufacturers creating these numbers that people aren't really paying attention to, right? Tesla, to me, is still a small manufacturer. They're still fresh, relatively. They're 14 years old, somewhere around there.
Yeah, like 2010 or something. They came out of 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Polestar, super young. Porsche's been around forever, bringing out the Taycan. Who am I missing? Ford doing the Lightning and the Mach-E. So I think there's something to gain from looking at those smaller background companies. Don't pay attention to Fisker right now. Or Karma.
So for years, the conversation from the finance perspective has been that the competitors to Tesla are coming. And for years, Tesla's been like, cool, where are they at? Because the only ones that are here are like the Volt, and it catches fire, and you're not supposed to park it next to anything, anywhere. And in large bureaucratic fashion with Ford, and I'm a huge Jim Farley fan, GM, Volkswagen, everybody. Now you almost feel like you're on the precipice of all of those now just unloading, and all of them having. I've been seeing more Audis lately. I've seen Rivian trucks everywhere now.
But again, you have the Rivian, but again, it's that small manufacturer. Like if you look at Audi, you have the e-trons, big manufacturer, low production. Ford stopped the Mach-E. Are they going to do that for Lightning? Like that's what I'm saying, is like you have all these small EVs that are creeping up on these large manufacturers to keep an eye on.
Well, they stopped the Mach-E because they stopped accepting orders. So they're like, hey, let us fulfill. At least my understanding was, hey, let us fulfill these orders because we have like 200,000 units and we can't fulfill 200,000 units if we meet all of our expectations for the next 2 years. So let's get there, and then we'll start opening up orders. I think they did the same thing for the F-150. But yeah, no, there's a lot of competition coming. You're going to have a slowing economy, probably bouncing right into that. But supply chains, I've been seeing more graphics cards opening up. There's a lot of, it wasn't Tesla. There was somebody that said today that the next quarter is not going to be as bad as this last quarter. I think it was Apple, actually. No, they just reported earnings today after the bell. And they were saying that the supply issues that they faced in Q1 are not going to be as bad in Q2 as it was in Q1. So you do have that easing, which means in theory, a lot of these people that are complaining about supply issues, chips and whatnot, you're probably going to start getting more and more ramp. And again, that to me makes kind of a bearish case for Tesla. Not that it's not going to be the dominant brand for years to come. It probably will be, because it's kind of the Apple of the cars, right? Like it's the one everybody wants. But with that said, you had mentioned to me on the Model Y reservation. Well, if you want a Model Y long range right now, you're waiting until end of this year, 2022, or early next year, 2023. If you want the performance, you're still waiting 2 or 3 months, best case. And that's if they encounter no other issues. So it's interesting when that person's looking at the Tesla saying, hey, I can't get that car for 6 months, but I can go and get this Ford Mach-E, or I can go get this Lucid or whatever. It's a pretty attractive option when gas is shooting up. And probably yeah. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming out right now. Final thought: what do you think about the Audi taillights? Kind of sticking to the EV thing. I've seen more and more of them now. They have that stripe along the back. You know what I mean? It's pretty neat.
I'm annoying, so I like it a lot. I enjoy it. I'm obnoxious. I enjoy it. Yeah, it's just like there's people that don't like the sequential taillights on the turn signal. I'm like, listen, just the fact that you're using a turn signal, I'm happy with, and then 2, it looks cool. I'll deal with it. And I like the long bar. I like the front one too. Have you seen the ones that do the upgrade so that they have the entire LED package along the front hood?
I haven't, but I actually also didn't think of it from the standpoint that I wonder if you can, and I'm sure this will come out, and if not, if you can program those lights in the back to like do stuff where you do a turn signal, and then now like half of the back light start like pulsing like that or something. That'd be really cool.
That'd be nice.
People are going to do that, right?
Yeah. If you had a Tesla, it'd be super easy, but the Germans, they're not going to let you do it.
All right, man. I got to get going. We'll probably have an addition on your end next week, so we'll see if we actually get together to do this next week. But
it's going to happen. I already put the rules in place.
Yeah, I'm gonna run the trailer here one more time, and I'll catch you on the other side.